Patricio O'Ward Junco, or Pato for short, is a 24-year-old Mexican professional auto racing driver who competes full-time in the Indycar series, driving the number 5 Chevrolet for Aero Mclaren. He's previously raced in Super Formula, Indy Lights, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, Pro Mazda, IMSA, NACAM Formula 4, Pro Mazda, and is the test driver for McLaren's F1 team. In this, he was the 2018 Indy Lights champion, and currently in IndyCar, he has 4 wins, 16 podiums, and 5 poles. And the past couple years, he's been one of the championship favorites going into each season. So, what's the problem? If Pato were to end his career right now, he would have better accolades than many drivers who have been driving IndyCar and professionally for much longer than he has. However, he has an issue this season that he cannot seem to figure out. And this has been an issue he's dealt with really for his whole career, but in different ways throughout. This issue is discipline. At first in IndyCar, he struggled with discipline in managing his tires and hitting fuel numbers. This left him fading late in races, even when he had good race pace and a great car. Firstly, let's get into some history about Pato's upbringing as a racer, specifically in IndyCar. So he first got his IndyCar start with Harding Steinbrenner Racing in 2018. So a couple weeks after he clinched the 2018 Indy Lights Championship title, he made his debut at Sonoma Raceway in the second Harding Steinbrenner Racing entry with Colton Herta, where he qualified 5th and finished 9th in the race. And that's really all he had with 2018. In 2019, due to some sponsorship issues with Harding Steinbrenner, he was dropped and ended up getting picked up by Carlin Racing as a part-time driver and participated in 13 races in the 2019 season. Notably, he was bumped in the Indy 500 that year along with Max Chilton and Fernando Alonso. Later that year, he acquired a deal with Red Bull Racing to participate in their junior series, kind of like the feeder Formula One program for McLaren, and that was kind of a short stint for him. And later, it was announced that year that he was going to sign for a full-time ride with Aero McLaren SP for the 2020 season. In 2020, we see Pato get his real big break. The team's taking a flyer on him, he's getting a full-time opportunity, and he takes advantage of it. He comes out strong, getting pole position and getting a podium finish at Road America, and then he follows it up at Iowa, finishing 4th in the first race. And so going into the Indy 500, he has a lot of hype, right? And he actually performs very well his first 500. He finishes 6th and ends up acquiring the Rookie of the Year award for his performance at the 500. And he's not done there. He actually follows it up with consecutive podium finishes at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. And so there's a lot of hype about him. He's doing extremely well, and throughout the rest of the season, he does very well in the points. Obviously, he has his ups and downs, but ends up finishing 5th in the overall standings that year. And later on that year, he actually gets an extension, a new deal with Aero McLaren SP, a more long-term deal. And that kind of brings us into 2021. In Pato's sophomore season, he really began to make a name for himself and emerged as a title contender. He started off the season strong again by earning his 2nd career pole position at the season opener at Barber, but unfortunately was unable to convert that pole position into a win. And this is a trend you're going to see with him. And then in this year, a lot of pole positions, finishing high in the grid with qualifying, but unable to convert those into wins. So he ends up getting his third place finish in the first race at Texas, and then that second race at Texas the following day, he gets his first IndyCar victory, becoming the first Mexican driver to win an IndyCar race since Adrian Fernandez in 2004. So after taking his first win, he really never dropped below 3rd in the championship standings. He was fighting off Newgarden, Dixon, and Palou alike throughout the remainder of the season. So he started on pole and finished 3rd at his first race in Detroit, and then ended up getting his 2nd IndyCar win at the second race in Detroit. He achieved his 3rd pole position of the season at the IMS road course, where he eventually finished 5th in the race. Got another podium with a 2nd place finish at Gateway, taking the championship lead for the first time of the season. So things are looking on the up and up. Once we get to the last race of the season at Long Beach, he is statistically in the running for contention for the season series title. However, he ended up DNFing with a wreck with Ed Jones, and ultimately finished third in the championship behind Palou and Newgarden. But those are some great names to be up there with. Now let's get into his third year, 2022. So in 2021, really what I recognize with Pato is that his talent was there, man. He's a super talented guy, and he almost out talents a lot of drivers. And even though they may manage their fuel and tires better, he can still compete with them until they get later in the races. Then it ends up fading very fast. But really, 2021 was promising, and in 2022 there were really high hopes for Pato. And so in this, it was a contract year for him. Started off the season slowly, got his first win of the season at Barber, announced he signed a 3-year contract extension with Arrow, and so that's awesome. I think that, he's a driver that they can definitely build around. And then followed up this new contract with a second place finish at the Indy 500. Briefly getting ahead of Marcus Ericsson, but couldn't complete the pass, and ends up getting second when he was heartbroken after that. But he kind of followed it up with a stint of some really tough races, having some car issues, some DNFs and all that jazz, but picked up a second win on the season at Iowa and ended up finishing 7th in the championship standings. So from 3rd to 7th from 2021 to 2022. And that kind of brings us to where we are now. O'Ward really had an extremely strong start to this season, finishing in second place 3 out of the first 5 races. His performance in Long Beach, however, was subject to some criticism after he had a pretty risky overtake with Scott Dixon, causing Dixon to crash out of the race. And then O'Ward ended up starting 5th in the Indy 500 this year, and that was really his best starting position to date, but ended up crashing out, fighting for the lead with Marcus Ericsson and Joseph Newgarden. We had about 7 laps to go, and he wrecked out. And then that following week, which was this past week, he crashed out again at Detroit. And so what we see in both of these case scenarios, we see frustration on Pato's part, we see an eagerness and impatience that can lead to making poor decisions. And so really the problem with him is not managing his tires, not listening to his engineers, not managing his fuel numbers, really being impatient, and sometimes the talent is there, but it's like you're making terrible decisions. And ended up, when we're talking about the Indy 500, he attempted to make that pass on Marcus Ericsson, and he shouts from the mountaintops, Marcus, squeeze me, but really, you can't be making that move there. He's making a move like it's the last lap of the race, when really, I talked to a lot of people, if he would have just been patient there, he clearly had one of the best cars on the track, and I think he could have fought for definitely a podium finish, and probably fighting for the lead if he would have been a little bit more patient and waited a few more laps. And then in Detroit, we see an issue with a tire not being put on all the way, and he gets frustrated, and he's almost going a lap down. He's last on track, and he tries to make this move on Santino Ferrucci and just bangs it right into the wall. And we get this attitude from him too after the race too. When it comes to his interview, he just kind of seems very nonchalant, like, oh, I had no other option. Like, you definitely did have an option. If you look at some of your competitors, like Marcus Ericsson at Nashville, I believe it was last year, he literally flipped over a car. His car was airborne in the middle of the race, came back and won the race over Colton Herta. And really, that's a testament to sticking it out. And that kind of brings me to, where can Pato go from here? Though I've never raced a car competitively, a lot of racing I've recognized from being a fan is the mental side of things. And some of the best to ever do it in an IndyCar seem to have a knack for staying composed. I think of names like Scott Dixon. I think of Alex Palou in recent years. And even Will Power, the reigning champion of the series, has, as he's aged over time, has become more composed. And so really playing the long game is where we see a lot of these championship contenders really staying in the mix. Even when they have their DNFs, when they have their poor races, they say on to the next race. They don't press, they don't push, they race for points. And whether that's a second or a third place finish, it is what it is on that side of things, right? And so I love Pato. he's great for IndyCar. He's great for the sport. He's got amazing charisma. And it's really refreshing to see somebody with that much personality. He's kind. He has a great following in fans. And you really can't question his racing skills. He really is a frickin' dog. And he's so fun to watch. But like any fan, I want to see him at his best. And he really is at his best when he isn't pressing, when he's composed, when he plays the long game, when he listens to his strategists and his engineers, when he doesn't let his frustration or prior events influence how he races a race, right? And I feel like until he consistently does these things, he's going to continue to have these ups and downs. I feel like he's going to continue to have a race that a race car that is competing at the front of the grid. I just don't think he'll be able to contend for championships until he makes these adjustments. But as a famous driver once said, no attack, no pass, I guess, right? But what do you guys think of Pato O'Ward? What do you guys think of his recent struggles? And do you like my IndyCar content? Do you want me to continue making IndyCar content? Let me know in the comments below. Is there a driver you'd like me to talk about? Is there a topic you'd like me to talk about? And as always, thanks for watching, and subscribe, like, and share, and have a great week. See you later.